Hello everyone, something new for the channel. This time we're interviewing American writer, comic book writer Ray Jamison. Hello, sir.
Hi there. It's very nice to meet you, and it is a pleasure to be on. Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah. Um, as I've preambled before we started recording, I told you that this is quite new, so I apologize to you in advance and to the listeners if I stumble upon my words. I'm not really a natural English speaker.
I understand. You sound fine to me so far, so no complaints.
So let's start the conversation because most of my listeners are Filipinos. Uh, most of them are in the Philippines. I've seen the analytics, but most of them do read comic books, either local or foreign imports. Mostly right now, I guess it's mostly the Oriental imports from Korea and from Japan, but we do still have like a good community of Western readers here. So, would you like to like introduce your books under your publisher?
Sure. As already stated, my name is Ray Jamison. I am a writer of the Madcaps. My I live in Winnipeg, which is in North America, in specific in Canada. But my publisher, Filbo Publishing, he's in New York. My book is a fantasy themed mini series. It's 3 issues long. It takes place over one night, and one of one thing that is very fond of me is camaraderie and friendship. This book reflects high levels of camaraderie. I'm sure every human being on the planet, when they get old enough, there are certain circles of friends that they don't get to see as much as they'd want to. And there's many reasons for this, including studies for schooling, your job, your career, maybe family and children. For me, I moved across country, and so my family and friends I don't get to see near as much as I used to. So this book, if you have if you can relate to anything I'm saying here, anybody listening, this story you will definitely be able to relate to. The whole thing is about four friends that meet up at their childhood home in a place called Ivywood, and they are in the wrong place at the wrong time, and they help stave off an undead outbreak of zombies. And one of the friends concludes it may have something to do with a local drug problem, with this fictional drug called weave. And over the course of the night, they follow a couple of leads, and these four are not the most powerful of, they're not the mightiest in the realm. So it's interesting to watch them go through and discuss, when do we call it quits? Should we be speaking to the local guard for them to resolve this? Because we don't want to metaphorically bite off more than we can chew. This book has a lot of good pacing. My interior artist, Victor Medina, he really appreciates that I do not rely on action all of the time, and the action is justified at the times it comes out. There are times when it slows down in a different style of intrigue. Excuse me. All in all, this book, if you like fantasy, if you miss your friends or really appreciate close camaraderie, if you are interested in reading something that doesn't have 60 years of lore that you have memorized, Marvel and DC, if you want to pick up on something like X-Men, you would feel a little lost potentially going into it, because there are a lot of cases where they don't have to rely on explaining their characters. You know them so well. But if somebody is brand new to that, it could be a problem. For mine, there's none of that leading up to this, the beginning of this story. And all in all, I'm really having a good time with this. This is my first time writing a story instead of just reading, and I've had lots of great talent. Some of the biggest worth noting is my colorist, Dan Kemp. He's colored from Spawn issue 50 to 150, roughly. And there is also Jimbo Salgado. He made the very first cover of mine. He's from the Philippines. And also somebody who goes by the alias of Pog's Art. You can look him up on Facebook and Instagram. I just got one of his covers drawn for me. It's being colored as we speak. Right now it's just black and white. I could show these covers in a little bit. All in all, I'm having a really good time.
Okay, so as I mentioned before, our audience here are mostly Filipinos. Most of us are familiar with our local scene, comic book scene, but how different, we want to know how different it is from uh, your perspective as a producer of comics overseas. Um, for your book, did you are you the one who like put together the art team?
I see. Yes. So for myself, I wrote the story, and then I started reaching out on social media to various amounts of different talent. One of the best things I like about social media is when you see a drawing, you don't know anything else behind it until you start investigating. So it's one of the purest forms of appreciating art because you only see what's shown to you. The very first cover I had drawn, as stated with Jimbo Salgado, I just saw some of his art and I said, I want this guy on my team. And speaking to him, you start to learn a bit about him. Oh, cool, he has a different background than myself. And over time, once I had my interior artist, once I had my colorist, once I had my letterer, and then I started looking at covers after that. It's pretty interesting. You get a real mix. I'm sure a lot of comic books with superhero teams, they're all very different, and it's kind of neat. I've kind of essentially done the same thing.
Yeah. So, because there's instances that most of the time, you said you had the publisher. That the publisher is the one who puts together the team for a title. Uh, but in your case, you when you pitch this to your publisher, it's already a done deal that you already have your team.
Yes. Now, in my case, I had everything put together, and then I pitched it to different publishers. Shout out to Filbo Publishing, Philip Russert. He's also gone into distribution in North America. There's one of the main distributors has closed their business. So Filbo Publishing, they've started their own distributor called Filbo Distribution. I've been very fortunate. This is the first comic I've ever written, and it's going into local comic shops across North America once all three issues are finished. So I'm very happy about that. In most cases, the publisher has to approve the talent. And in my case, moving to issue 2 and 3, it was the same thing. There wasn't any challenge, but unless it was something jarring, um, publishers like to keep their names clean. So if there's certain names that are uh, politically unwise to have on your team, they'll just say, hey, I want to support you, but I can't support that talent. But I've never had that scenario come up. I've always had approval. But usually it is the publisher, yes.
Mm, okay. Uh, how I you mentioned that the stories uh, inherently about four friends who meet up at the wrong place at the wrong time. Uh,
Yes.
but this is from what I've seen, this the genre of your book is more high fantasy,
Yes.
more high fantasy. What draws you to high fantasy as a writer?
Well, One of the things about fantasy, most people, when you think fantasy, you'll think, sure, you think like the big monsters, you think the big castles, you think knights. But one thing that is very underrated, in my opinion, in fantasy is what I like to call uncharted territory, the wild. Although my book revolves almost entirely on three locations, there's so much unsettled land. And for me, that is very intriguing. When you have somebody that lives in a big city, you don't go down a dirt road and find some spooky things that go bump in the night. Fantasy is one of the most interesting things about fantasy is I heard somebody once make the joke that we're too young to explore the planet, or sorry, we're too old rather to explore the planet, and we're too young to explore the galaxy. And something like fantasy is kind of fantasy and sci-fi. They both fit this model. You get to at least have the thought of that type of exploration. One of the cool things about fantasy I really like is it's it's very, as long as you're following your rules and your story, you can have some real crazy looking stuff and it's just everybody treats it as normal. You could have like some monster that lives in a swamp. You could have a tribe of villagers that live up in a mountain in sub freezing temperatures. I love in fantasy how there's a lot of mix and blend, and you can just churn out something new. For example, in my story, I have not heard many people. Uh, I've never heard of this concept before, so I've tried it. Many people have said to me that they really like the idea of a drug ring in a fantasy scenario. They've never seen something like that in a story. So I tried to bring something fresh, something I felt was worthy of the comic
Mhm.
industry.
Yeah, I haven't really read anything about like substance addiction in high
Yes,
fantasy.
yes. And I also have to disclaim this is not a pro or an anti drug comic. It just happens to have drugs in it. So, um, in the 80s and the 90s in North America, there was a lot of arcade games that it would have like the American crest on it and a blue screen. It would say, "Winners don't use drugs." My comic is not like that. It just happens to have drugs in it.
Okay. One thing that my listeners often take uh, are happy to learn about creators is where do they like get their influences or their inspirations to create such stories? Is this your first comic book writing?
Yes, well, one of the interesting things is I deep down inside I am an artist at heart. I never had the opportunity to develop my skills as I aged. It is something that, as I've said before, life gets in the way. I needed to establish myself in my career. I have a wife and kids now. It's not something that I can put as priorities up front. But being my first time writing, this was actually an homage to lots of different variables, as already mentioned, camaraderie and friendship being one of the big ones. This story actually is based off of the first homebrew D&D campaign that I ever ran
Mm, okay.
almost 15 years ago, and you can see the flavor reflected
Yeah.
accordingly. The main difference between when I ran that story with friends playing it and the actual written finished comic book is that I took out the characters that the players are playing as, and I injected in my own characters based off of people I know and various other influences.
So yeah, I've seen the influence of D&D. I mean, the imagery is very D&D. So it's nice to know that other creators, I've some of the local creators that I've talked to actually have adapted most of their campaigns, their childhood campaigns into stories to make it into a narrative for their own comic book stories. I've also seen this a lot in Japanese high fantasy stuff that the creators like take campaigns that they played with their friends and develop it for their own IPs. Um, After the Madcaps, you mentioned that it's gonna be three issues, right?
Yes.
As of now, there are two issues available.
Hmm.
Again, for the listeners, where can they like avail of the books?
So, two things are going to happen. The first one is in either March or April coming up, we'll have a Kickstarter for all three issues available. Once that is done, it's going to be put together as a trade paperback. I don't want to call it a graphic novel because it's just shy of 70 pages. I don't feel that's large enough to justify calling it a graphic novel. I think I'm going to call it a volume, and the whole volume will be one thing, and it will be going to distribution at that point. So it will be able to be found in local comic shops in North America. But any comic shops listening now, regardless of the country you're in, you can inquire, and this book and various other titles by Filbo Publishing will be available to be shipped to you. There's a whole catalog. You can look up their website. And that's the current plan. I've had numerous people ask if I'm going to keep going after issue 3. The answer is I don't know yet. and my intention was just the mini series. And one of the main reasons is this is my first time writing. And I didn't know how successful or lack thereof there would be in success. The fact that I got to the point where these three issues are going internationally is I'm very humbled by this. It's quite a cool little experience I've had. One thing, depending how successful it does at distribution, will dictate if I'm going to do something else. I don't want to do something that fizzles out due to lack of interest by fans. So the plan is right now finish on a high note, and if it's doing a lot better than I expected, then I do have other stories ready for this story.
Actually, you answered my next question, which is what's your plan after the third issue already? So, yeah. Uh, so let's go back to um, the talent uh, point of view that I was asking you about when you first reached out to me on Facebook. Uh, how do you like um, pick your the talent for your covers? I've seen that you have lots of covers. I've read the credit page and you have like how many variants? Is that it?
Total covers between issue 1 and 2 are 10 covers. Initially, I didn't intend to have too many covers, and I decided that I wanted a main cover to have the entire group, and then the each variant to debut one of the characters. Another thing I tried to do is each one of the variant covers with one individual on it, I tried to debut something that was in the book. Issue 1 was a little different because I'm just showing a character, so I gave a bit more liberties, but in issue 2, every cover has something to do with the story. Issue number 3, I actually have 9 different covers coming, new covers, I should say, and there's reason for that. But I can't say why yet. There's actually some cool things coming out, and it's torture not being able to just share everything.
I know that feeling now. Whenever you get a cool image done, the compulsion to share it is there, but sometimes you have to keep it.
Yes, the timing is critical.
I've noticed that the first issue has a different interior artist.
Mhm.
Um, was there like is the third issue a different artist as well?
I understand. So Victor Medina, who did the interiors for issue 2, he is currently almost finished the interiors for issue 3. The first interior artist for issue 1, Evan Quiring, shout out to Evan Quiring. He is in Winnipeg, like myself. The only reason issue 2 is a different artist was because he has his own things going on, and
Mhm.
I could not line up schedule with him, unfortunately. With that said, the show had to go on. So, issue number 1, if you want to check out Evan Quiring's art, if you like him in issue number 1, you can look up The Murder City Devil, which is about the folklore of Spring Hill Jack, if there was a modern equivalent, kind of an anti-hero archetype. He's pretty cool looking. And also Lucha Mysteries, which is a really wild and zany comic, which consists of like Mexican wrestlers and
Mm.
aliens and spaceships. It's all over the place. It's pretty cool. But the only reason there's a shift is just because of availability. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's a thing with artists who are also like creators. Sometimes you, as writers, actually I feel guilty about this because do a lot of collaborations with other artists who are also creators that you take time off. They take time off their own creations to help you visualize your own creation. So
Yes.
yeah, I think yeah. Yeah. Do you want to discuss anything about comics in general?
One thing I do want to heavily highlight is I'm not anti Marvel or anti DC, but with that said, sometimes Marvel and DC they have to make quota, or sometimes they have to like put in a filler issue to make sure two specific issues line up on a specific month. Um, I grew up loving those two companies and what they provided for young fellas like myself at the time, and before I was even born. With that said, my book, um, every page is there with purpose. I originally had this story for 2 issues, but because there was so much going on, I had to put it into 3. Marvel and DC sometimes do the opposite. They've got 3 issues of content, but they need it to be 5 issues. There's no filler content. Everything you
Yeah,
read
yeah.
is something you're going to appreciate.
I see.
And
Yeah, I understand what you're where you're coming from. Used to be when I was younger, I could buy Marvel DC comics, and it was like self-contained.
yes,
Uh, yeah, it was something that you could read from page one to the last page, and it was finished. It was a good, solid story. Uh, but lately, they've been deconstructing their
yes,
their storytelling, and now you have to have like 6 issues for the entire uh to get the entire story, and sometimes this could have been done in like two.
yes, yes. It's a tough dynamic. Since the 90s, we've had some what I like to call growing pains in regards to story establishment in comic books. It all came from a good place. So the good place being what Image decided to do. They were foundationally indie. The only reason that made them different from any other indie is they had really high caliber talent that were considered celebrities. But with that said, these artists, their strengths were the visuals. Their story was not their strengths, and they had some learning curves there. And throughout the 90s, because of Image establishing itself, a lot of Marvel, DC, they struggled with story, especially the back half of the 90s. And there was a learning curve, and going into the 2000s, Brian Michael Bendis is one of the best examples. He pitched to Marvel Ultimate Spider-Man, this different universe of I just want to do this cool stuff. What if Peter Parker got his powers in modern times, not in the 60s? and it was very successful because of the story. When I think of Ultimate Spider Man or the rest of that Ultimate Universe, no disrespect to the artists. I'm not saying that the art was bad, but what I am saying is I don't think like I if I think hard and long enough, I know there's artists in there and I appreciate their art, but I'm there for the story on that one. And over time, it seemed to balance itself out. There has been some learning curves, especially with Marvel in regards to Disney buying them out because they wanted to try some different things. Um, I believe they are almost finished that growing pain. We'll put it that way. They've learned some things and they've learned what the fans like and they're starting to balance themselves out accordingly. But all in all, I've been a big fan of indie as of late. I review my own comics, or sorry, I do my own reviews on comic books. I've done over 40 now. I think I just released number 41 on my Facebook profile. And I like promoting people that take a chance on stuff. It's just cool to hear stories that you usually would not hear of due to lack of promotion. And it's really cool the era we're in now where you could just promote across the planet like you and I are doing right now. It's just a really cool thing.
Yeah, yeah, that's pretty cool actually. In our neck of the woods in the Philippines, we don't really have an industry anymore. Uh, used to we used to have like normal like 100,000 distribution copies per week. We used to have that kind of industry, but it was very like insular. It was never like exported, but we did have that thing. And now I often say this to the creators that are doing comics still here, their own stories. That that's one thing that was good about the implosion of our industry was because, like you said, Marvel and DC are businesses, and
Yes.
they are. If you're a business, you have to have you're very particular about sales. Uh, in comics, on our part earlier, we found a formula that was really selling to the masses. That was in the 1940s after the war, and you would see that story formula has been regurgitated through the decades until the 90s. So,
Yes.
because it was selling, it was what there was an editorial mandate that these are the stories that they had to do. With the implosion
Yes.
of our industry, now you could see a lot of different creators doing stories that might have never seen the light of day before because those are the stories that are the editors would say this would never sell.
Yes. Yeah. What's the term they use nowadays? Gatekeeping. Because of the internet and because of repercussions from the 90s, there's a lot. You don't have to go through a certain group. You can bypass them and get the people without the middleman now, which is really cool.
So, speaking about the internet, are your books available to be read online?
Um, you will be able to on Kickstarter buy digital copies. Once the entire series is complete in regards to Kickstarter launches, that option will be available. But as of right now, no. The closest thing you can get to a digital copy is the Kickstarter that's coming out on either March or April.
Is there a reasoning about uh, not going online with the books, or are you?
Um,
Mm.
Go ahead.
Well, I had this conversation with. Well, this is more applicable to us since, like I said, we did not have an industry here, and as self publishers, we have very limited resources to print how many copies. I mean, 1,000 to 5,000 copies are the only copies that we can produce. So most of us here like would opt, or I would suggest for them to opt for an online presence because 5,000 copies would only reach 5,000 people,
I
and like
understand.
a million, 100 million of the population here in the Philippines. Uh, I'm not sure how many units you guys produce, but like you said, the internet is like a game changer for this. You have more eyes on your product right now, even
Yes.
outside your own market.
Yes. So the 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 only reason I haven't had the online option yet outside of the Kickstarter digital copy purchase is this is my first time. I want to see how everything plays out when the dust settles on the Kickstarters. Kickstarters are very different in regards to comic book nowadays. There's been an ebb and a flow in regards to how successful they are and timing. And one thing I would like to see is this third and final issue. I'm curious to see how many more additional readers I can get when I say this is the entire miniseries and you can get issues 1 to 3. I'm just curious to see how that experiment goes. But again, when that's done and it goes to distribution, I will be having an online option as well.
Hmm. Okay. So yeah, I think we still have 6 minutes on our Zoom meeting. Uh, um, do you have like a social media presence for your book? That
I do.
yeah.
So on Facebook, you can find me as DM Ray. DM is just short for Dungeon Master because I like to play some Dungeons and Dragons. On Facebook, there's also the Madcaps. Sorry, a Facebook page. You can just look us up, the Madcaps.
Okay.
You
I'll
can
put
also
down the links down below for anyone who's
beautiful
interested to take a look at the Madcaps book and Sir
for
Ray's
sure.
page. Yeah.
You can also find me on Instagram as Raymond the DM. DM Ray was taken, but you can also find there's a pre-launch page right now for the Madcaps issue number 3. It's issues 1, 2, 3 that you can find, and that is at this point the most critical. Every time I get a follower onto there, it will help the algorithm in my favor. So even if you could not financially support this, but you like the idea of the project, clicking on notify me on launch, it will support in ways that you and I both don't see in a lot of behind the scenes internet related dynamics. Um, for updates, I will be releasing updates weekly up until the launch of this book. You could find again DM Ray on Facebook, the Madcaps Facebook page, and then Raymond the DM on Instagram. Keep your eyes on any of those profiles, and you'll see some cool stuff coming out. A lot of cool covers. Pog's art, a Filipino artist, he just finished drawing black and white a picture of one of my characters, Chasgo, the blue-skinned elf, but it's going to be colored and it's going to be glow in the dark as well. So I'm really excited to finally show that. But right now it's just black and white. You can find it on my profiles.
Cool. So one final question. I often ask this for creators, for the would-be creators that are listening here. What would be your advice for them when they want to start writing or when they start creating comic books?
Write what you know, and more importantly, don't show it to anybody until you've finished it. And there's a reason for that. If you have a goal of where you're going in the story, and you want your story to get to that goal, if you only write the first couple of things, and don't get me wrong, some people do this and they're great at it. I personally am not. But if I only write a little bit and somebody reads it, they'll start giving me advice that steers me away from my end goal. And I personally that's a tough one for me. Some people are perfectly fine taking that critique. The other thing is when you start bringing in talent, pick something you feel is worthy of your book. Do not primarily try to pick something that is the best. Don't try to get pick something that's the best for your story. All of my any piece of talent I've gotten, I I ask myself, would their style make my characters look good? Not this is the best art style I've ever seen. If I had the opportunity of having somebody like Todd McFarlane to draw something for me, my first question is, will he make my stuff look good? And if not, I wouldn't take him regardless of how good he is. So if you're writing, finish it before somebody reads it. And if you're getting artists, make sure it's what they can do, make your stuff look good.
Yeah, that's a very good point actually. For our writer creators there, not all art styles like complement what you're writing. So
Yes.
it's really nice. It's really good like to discern which art style would bring your story to life better, right?
Yes, I agree.
So yes, thank you, sir, for your time.
I really appreciate the opportunity. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this is like pretty weird probably for my listeners. Let's go check out Sir Ray's comic book, The Madcaps, at the links that I will put down on the description down below. Again, for those who are interested with comic books, well, this one's our first one, an American writer on our show. Um, Share this to your friends, subscribe to the channel, and come back for more conversations with comic book creators.
Right on. Salamat.